Erik, I know you always say you have enough, but between the attrition and just the talent of this Celtics team this season, what was it like pushing through 5 games and especially trying to push through tonight?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, we're not going to put this on the fact that we've had some injuries. Let's not take anything away from Boston. They've been the best team in basketball all season long, and in this series, in 4 of the games, they played as such. That had nothing to do with the injuries. Had nothing to do with guys that are available or not available. They played very good basketball, and they probably had something, to motivate them even more against us. But they played at a high level, and they will probably. I will not watch 1 minute of their games, but they'll probably do this, to several teams, from here on out. They've got a very good team. They know what they're doing, and they deserve this one.
In this situation, what does it say about Bam? It looked like he was going to play every second of the game until the fourth quarter.
Yeah,
and to come out and also take as many shots as he did and
I
carry the load.
I think I looked at a box score. We're down 1,000. So, yeah, I had every intention of playing him 48 minutes tonight if the game was within reach. He's Bam's a warrior. He'll battle, and he brought a competitive spirit tonight. But collectively, we were far from our best tonight. And again, you have to credit Boston. They took control of this game. You could sense that they wanted this to end right now, tonight, and not let this thing get back to Miami. That's a sign of a mature team.
I know it's early and not the moment necessarily, but this season, when you look back on it, is there a feeling of, after what happened last season, failing to measure up, or was this an unusual ride because of sort of how it played out along the way?
Yeah, it's probably a little bit of everything. It's disappointing the way it ended. There are disappointing moments of the season. There are moments where I really thought that we grew from a lot of the adversity. And we'll have plenty of time, to go through the autopsy on the regular season. It was super competitive in both conferences, and 2 or 3 wins, could make monumental differences. I think to play Boston this year, I think we would have needed, 2 rounds to get better from the competition to somehow survive and advance the first round, survive and advance second round. By the time you get to the Eastern Conference Finals, you're a totally different team. From those experiences, we would have needed those experiences together and really earn some tough things, I think, to face this team, where they are now. But we'll never know. But in the first round, they were very good.
Erik, you mentioned that the Celtics you saw some maturity from the Celtics. Is that something that you're seeing in them this year that maybe you haven't in the past, that they're kind of growing into this?
Yeah, I don't know. The playoffs always will reveal. I thought they were really good last year. Going into our series and the conference finals, I had the utmost respect, for them and what they did all year. And, I think that was a perfect example. We were hardened, and we were much better from the play-in, the first round, the second round. By the time we faced them, we were razor sharp and ready for that cage fight. But I'm sure they've definitely improved. The roster have done a really good job with that, and they had a very good regular season.
Obviously, it didn't go the way you guys wanted to go, but what did you learn about Nico and Jaime just in this series, kind of them stepping into those roles?
I got to reflect. These experiences are important for Nico. And I think Jaime, has a little bit more experience, from a lot of college experiences. Nico, got a full education on how important every single detail every single possession, all of those things, how they really matter in the playoffs. And he'll be motivated to have a really important, productive offseason. He has to really get after it again. He made tremendous progress last offseason, the 6 weeks leading up into Summer League and then the World Cup, or the World Championships, and he'll need another summer like that. The Olympics will help, but I think getting a little bit of rest, getting healthy, getting away from it, but then building his body back up and then working on his player development and really preparing for that summer will be important as well. He's 20, so I always do need to remind myself of that. I hold him to an extremely high standard because our standards are not going to change. Our expectations are always going to be championship level expectations. And yes, I'm expecting him to rise to that. Is he there now? No. Am I going to stop driving him and pushing him? No. But I've been very encouraged by the progress that he's made, in particular in the last 12 months. He didn't play at all in last year's playoff run. And so really what you're talking about is June all the way until now, the type of progress he made has been pretty significant. Thanks, Coach. All right, thank you.
Questions for Joe?
Joe, what did you like most about your team's approach here in Game 5?
Just the consistency, physicality. I thought we played with real speed on the offensive end. Very purposeful, getting to our spacing, getting to the right matchup. So I really liked just the intentionality we played with on both ends.
How would you describe the impact of Derek White and what he's meant, not just today and in the previous game, but also generally?
Yeah, he's one of the point guards, and he has the ability to do different things. So at the beginning of the series, they were defending us in different ways, and we had to work to get him involved. And once they kind of made some adjustments, he can play in pick and roll. He can play spot ups, but he has an impact. He can impact the game in a lot of different ways, offense and defense, whether it's rebounding, whatever it takes. So he's been great for us.
So what does this one mean for you guys, to get it done against a team that beat you last year, and the history that, these two teams have, and just the competitiveness of the series?
Yeah, I mean, spending time, doing that every single year. I don't really worry about what happened last year. At the end of the day, I like how we approached the series, regardless of who we were playing. Had intentionality to it, had attention to detail, and had a consistent physicality. And that's the most important thing, is having that regardless of who you're playing against. And you wake up tomorrow, you got to do it all over again versus another team. So it doesn't really matter that what happened then.
What stood out about the way you guys execute offensively? You talked about the spacing, but also just, last game, the small screening, you got to some different stuff, it looked like, in terms of just, especially Derek being able to, get into his threes and stuff like that.
Yeah, just pace has a lot of different definitions, but we play a little bit faster. Just the ability to sprint, slip, create indecisions, get out and run. I thought, our guys did a good job of dictating the tempo the last two games. And when you can get out and force cross matches and get guys off your body, it gives the Drews and Derek's and Peytons and Sams and those guys a little bit, more impact on the game, which is important for us.
Joe, you talked about the bench being one of the keys to the series. What did you think of their effort tonight and just the series as a whole?
It was great. Like I said, there's no difference between the regular season and the playoffs. They play the same way. But those guys bring a different layer on both ends of the floor. So and credit to Luke, not playing at the beginning of the series because of an injury and coming back gave us great minutes. And so it's important that they continue to do that for us. And, every series takes on a life of its own. So there'll be different matchups, different sub-patterns. But their open-mindedness and their ability to play regardless of the circumstances is important.
His first game without Kristaps. Al obviously has stepped into the starting lineup like in half the games this year, but just to see him step in, a lot of intensity, came over the bench after a couple offensive rebounds in the first quarter, got hyped up. Like you just mentioned, Luke was awesome. How pleased were you with those guys stepping up with KP out?
Yeah, I mean, Al kind of sets the temperature for us, with just his ability to impact the game basketball-wise, but like you said, also with his personality and his aggressiveness. So, he set the table for us tonight. He set the tone for us, and everybody followed suit.
And then KP's sort of been you guys' release valve all year. Like you go to him in the post a lot. That's sort of like the fail-safe of the offense. Without that, great ball movement today. A lot of like, just working together as a team to get those shots, those threes you mentioned when Bobby asked you the question. How pleased were you with that response in terms of offensive execution without that release valve that you guys have depended on?
Yeah, I mean, it just goes back to you got to win. One of the things coming in the season was being able to win games different ways, different lineups. And even when KP was healthy, we still played small. We still did a bunch of stuff. We played double big. So you just have to develop a bunch of different identities, to be able to get into different playoff series when you have different matchups. And we've been able to do that because the guys, their attention to detail and, their buy-in towards, making the most sense, doing whatever it takes to win that particular game and having different identities.
Joe, you won the series, which is obviously the most important thing. Could you speak to the bonus of having a little bit of breathing room to recalibrate and see what you have and what changes you need to make moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, we'll take tomorrow off and we'll practice on Friday.
Would you use the time to make any changes in terms of you have an injured player and what you'd have to do moving forward, or do you already have that set in place?
I mean, I think it's just find the balance of there's things that, again, like each series takes on a life of its own. So, on Friday, we'll be able to work on some long-term stuff, regardless of who we're playing, that we need to get better as a team. And then whenever we decide our opponent, we can kind of go towards that. But I think it's important that we get better as a team on Friday, really important.
Joe, you guys won the rebounding battle by 22. You had 2 offensive rebounds. Can you talk about kind of the game plan that went into that and how it played out throughout the night?
Yeah, I mean, I think we won the shot margin in all 5 games, which was a huge point of emphasis for us heading into the season. Finding different ways to impact the shot margin and win it. And I think we did that all 5, and that's important. I don't know if they were crashing as much as they would, but I think they made an effort to focus on transition defense more, I think. But we were very intentional about making sure we had 4 or 5 guys in the paint when they had a shot go up to rebound. And, I thought our guards, pick and roll, physicality on the ball was major between Derek and Peyton and Sam and Drew, because we didn't do as much switching this series as we may or may not have in the next series. But our shift activity on the weak side was tremendous. They didn't get back cut. They were able to impact shooters, and they were able to rebound. It's important.
And you've been focused on the margins of the game night in and night out, and it seems like the guys are too. Can you talk about the level of connection you have with how you see the game and where you have your players playing as opposed to
I think that's what your goal is, right? As a team, is to develop a shared mental model, a shared approach towards what lens you want to look at the game of basketball through, and how you're going to play the game on both ends of the floor, and develop a philosophy as to why you do what you do and how this impacts that, and building the connections. And so, it starts with the guys. They're open-minded to it. They love understanding the game. They watch games differently now because of all the stuff that we go over, and they make it their own, so that's important.
Joe, it seemed like Jaylen Brown was a real tone setter for you guys. He came out ultra aggressive, 7 of the first 12 shots. Did you have a sense he was going to come out with that type of killer instinct?
I had a sense that our guys were going to play that way. I think JB's very focused, and I thought he was one of the ones that helped dictate our tempo to start the game, really got us out in transition, got them, took advantage of matchups. So when he plays at that, that level of tempo for us, we're a different team, and he's done that throughout the entire year.
Joe, can you touch on the kind of the business-like approach of this series? There was really no lapses, no lack of focus. You guys lost game 2, then came back and beat them down for 3 consecutive games. Can you kind of touch on maybe just what brought that on? Is that just growth from last year, just being as locked in as you guys were?
Yeah, a little bit of everything. I thought the scout coaches, Ross and Tony, did a great job just being very purposeful in what our adjustments were, keeping it simple, but at the same time knowing where we had to adjust. And I thought the players brought a high level of maturity to the details, and then also understanding the theme of the series was physicality and having to win the shot margin. So it was the staff, and it was the guys buy into that. And you're right. I thought they had a high level of maturity to that, and something we got to continue.
It just seems like the trust all around this year with this team is just it's way more than, not saying you didn't trust each other, but just the growth.
Yeah, the longer you're around each other, the longer you have the conversations to go about how you want to do things, you're going to develop that sense of trust. But I think it starts with the guys. I think the trust they have in each other, the way they communicate, the way they prepare is super important. So I think it's more about them.
Joe, as the focus shifts to the next round, what challenges do you see Cleveland and Orlando presenting?
I mean, each team presents a different level of challenge. I think for us, we have to stay open-minded to go to different stuff. Like you said, what wins one series, what wins one game is not going to win the next game, is not going to win the next series. So every team is better than us at something, and we're better than them at something. So we have to do a great job of honing in on our strengths and at the same time understand where our weaknesses are and work on those and do that to our opponent. Thanks.
Wanna try to boast at what I look like. Think I'm gonna try to wear, pull up all brains. Jimmy with the heat, I'm on fire. The city over here,